Getting started, Jacob, thank you for joining.
Yeah.
How are you doing today?
Good, man. How are you? Thanks for having me.
Yeah, Jacob's a poet. Jacob's a friend of mine. He's a basketball player. We get to see each other on the court every week.
Yeah, just saw each other yesterday on the court.
Any soreness, or how you doing?
You know, I injured my my finger a little bit. I jammed it. You can see it probably.
I can. Yeah, you got a bruise on there.
There's some purpling happening on there, but otherwise I'm okay. I also got kneed somehow in the thigh, so I felt feeling a little bit there.
I got a little something.
Nice.
I got a little something, but it's on my elbow, which is not a good sign. If I'm throwing elbows.
Yeah.
But if you don't get at least one discoloration on your body, you're not playing hard enough. That's
True.
One of the tenets of basketball.
Yeah. Yeah, and it felt good. It felt good to be out there. It was a beautiful day. I was super hungover though, and but I played pretty well, like for being hungover. I thought like shots were falling.
You're always playing well.
Well, thanks.
You're always playing well.
That.
You have a second game too, so you get good rotations. Yeah. You made me think of something I have to absolutely ask at the beginning here. I was with some people at like 9:15 p.m. last night, and I wanted to invite some other people to something on Wednesday. Mm-hmm. Now I said, let's just wait and invite these people tomorrow morning, because you text someone at like 9 o'clock at night on a Saturday, I feel like too high of a chance someone is inebriated or stoned, and like doing left brain planning type or right brain, left brain planning type stuff is too difficult. Right. It's too big of a chance that someone even be like kind of seeing double maybe, and they're not going to be able to handle their schedule. Would you ever take that into consideration, like texting someone at a time where you think most other people are going to be out? Like, it's not the time, right? Yeah.
I actually had a similar moment on Friday night when I was out. We went to the Sky game, and that was great. Great game. They came back. Well, it was a back and forth affair between the New York Liberty and the Chicago Sky, and Sky ended up winning. It was great. So then we went out afterwards to a bar in the Hood, Long Room. And I just had one too many cocktails for sure. But during that night, though, at one point, either it was at the game or at the bar, I noticed I got an email.
You're checking emails?
Yeah, well, I mean, so on Monday.
That's even next level.
I play Monday Night Hoops, and there's an email invite that goes out, usually Wednesday afternoon or sometime. And then the guy had texted. There's also like, not only is there like an email invite, there's also like a group text chain for some of the ballers. And saying, "Oh, just a heads up, guys, I'm sending it out. Sorry for the late invite, but I'm sending it out now." And because I mentioned this to you off camera, of course, but how like it's a hot game. Like we cut it off at 12, so the first 12 to respond, are automatically in. And I was like, yeah. So I saw the email and I was like, oh, I got to reply right now and just make sure that it's a yes. And
do you think you were more curt than you usually are? Like, did you just do like an emoji thumbs up response?
I didn't even reply to the text. I just said, I just went right to the email and just like, boom. Usually I would say, thanks, Bobby, who's like the organizer of it. He's really, very nice, kind guy. And I appreciate the heads up because it's like, it's a hot game.
You got to get in there. Yeah. No, for sure.
That's great. Yeah, I do take into consideration though that sort of things. And
one of the people I was with, they were challenged and they're like, "Why are you even thinking about people being drunk right now? Like, why is that a thing?" I'm like, "This is like not that I want it to be. It's kind of a booze nation, right? I mean, obviously part of this is our age. We're at a certain point in our lives where it's still possible to commit these atrocities against your flesh.
Yep.
To put down some sauce and to be able to play great basketball the next day like you did yesterday.
Then I was dying the rest of the day. I did absolutely nothing. It just like, the hangover elements like hit like as soon as I got home.
Yeah.
And so I was just done.
Do you have any hangover tricks? Some people like to eat like bananas in the morning.
I'm usually a banana eater in the morning, like typically, but I didn't. I actually packed a banana yesterday morning thinking I was like, oh, I'll eat it like during mid-game or something, or while I'm breaking one of the games, and I didn't. It just ended up browning in my backpack. But I don't really have any tricks. Like I know some people tend to do like ibuprofen or something before bed, like so you don't have that hangover or the headache.
I forgot about that one. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
It's like, let's give the body something else to process.
Yeah.
Let's put something else in there.
Add some more drugs to the system. So that's like, I've done that before. I don't know if it really helped much.
Let me ask you about another ritual or like routine, because you change your basketball shirt halfway through every session of basketball.
I do.
Where did this come from?
Well, I'm a sweaty guy. And I mean, we're all sweating out there, of course. And it's just more of a consideration for, for you all and for myself. It's
Really?
like I'm drenched in this shirt. And I don't really have like too many dry fit shirts. Like the dry fit shirts, I tend to keep them on if I'm wearing them. But if I just have like a cloth tank top, then I'll just, then I'll change it out more frequently because, it's just like this heavy cloth that's on you. Heavy wet cloth that's on you, and then
No, that is very considerate.
and then I mean, you're guarding somebody, putting your elbow or body up against them, and it's fine. I don't mind, guarding somebody who is obviously ultra sweaty too. But there's the guy on Monday Night Hoops who was like the commissioner. He also is somebody who brings like 2 or 3 types of shirts.
Here we go. I was wondering what the precipitating event was.
Yeah.
If you had like someone who inspired you to do this.
Yeah. So I saw him doing it, and then I was like, oh yeah, I'll do that too. And it's like, and it's just good to just have a fresh shirt out there for a bit, and maybe you're having a shitty game in one particular shirt, and you're like, oh, maybe I just need to switch it up. And
one of the reasons I was going to ask, I didn't know if it was like a tabula rasa type thing, like you were trying to get a new start, blank slate. You're trying to like change your mindset, or just maybe segment the game. Like I'm sure there's some sort of sports psychology where if you're able to treat one long practice session as 2 sessions, you maybe have a moment to reflect and maybe think about what you can do better for the second half of the performance, right? Which could, I guess, in theory, improve your performance over time.
It's also, maybe this is a little TMI, but sometimes, with some of the cloth, like shirts, like they chafe up against my nipples. And like, I'm like 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, after a Saturday morning game, like I was in pain. My nipples were really hurting. And
I'm sorry to laugh.
I know, I'm sorry to be telling it, but my partner ended up giving me some sort of like lotion or remedy, like to help ease the pain or to ease the, I don't know, the roughness I was sort of feeling.
Yeah.
Didn't really help much, but
I feel like I need to switch my shirts and see if this could be related. If like the wetness is worse, or maybe having multiple cloths, it could be the tooth or the thread count of the cotton that's doing it.
right.
I did have this summer league once though, more basketball like war stories, and it was in Mather High School's like indoor gym back before I think CPS was forced to have air conditioning in their facilities. And it must have been over 100 degrees every single time. It must have been south-facing sun. It was the sweatiest I've ever been in my entire life. And finally, some of the guys just started bringing towels, just straight up towels, so that we're on the bench. You could stop the puddle from forming at the free throw line every time you were standing out there. It would get so bad. But it's not always a sport you associate with having that level of accessory. Like football players, I feel like they use towels and stuff because you have to catch, right? There's a lot of precision there. I feel like you don't always see that with basketball, but definitely something you can't assume too many limitations, right?
No.
You have to start using whatever gear works for you, especially wherever you're at in your athletic life.
Yeah.
Very good. Very good.
I bring multiple. Well, no, I just bring the one towel, one big towel, generally.
You do a towel too, right?
I do, for sure.
So you just understand what you need in life.
Yeah. I've been playing for a while now. I know how much I'm going to sweat, and just want to make sure I'm comfortable out there at most times.
Have you tried anything like next level, like switching shoes midway through the game?
No, I haven't.
Yeah.
I do need some new shoes for playing outdoors. So I tend to I don't know how you operate, like if you have different shoes for indoor and outdoor basketball, because I
always did previous.
Yeah.
I need to get different pairs if I'm playing in 2 different situations.
Right. So I have like my indoor shoes, which are these nice LeBron James shoes that a friend of mine gifted to me, actually. Very kind of him. They didn't fit him. We're about the same shoe size, but they were a little too tight for him. And so he just gave me these really nice LeBron James shoes. And then,
good gift.
And then so usually what I do is I tend to, whatever shoe I was using for indoors, then that's the new outdoor shoe.
Of course. Yes. Same.
But the outdoor shoe that I currently have has been around for a few years now, and they got like no traction underneath. And then the other day I was just tying them, and like the shoestring just sort of like started to unthread a bit as I was tying, and I was like, all right, this is...
The lace is the warning.
Yeah.
Yeah, when you start to lose the footboard, the foam insole,
Yeah.
that's when there's no question about it.
Yeah. So I need to upgrade my outdoor shoe game.
Yeah. I recently made the switch. I think was it last summer where the indoor ones became the outdoor ones. Now I have no indoor pair. Just how it is.
Yeah.
Just how it is. Well, what else is going on? You mentioned you're going to a lunch today. You're enjoying the summer. It sounds like an outdoor food thing.
Yeah. I don't know. Actually, I think we're going to be inside.
Is it inside?
I think so. I haven't been to their place. They just moved. My niece Tati and her boyfriend Christian just moved into the neighborhood. And yeah, should be going for some lunch. You know, my mom's going to be there. One of my other brothers is coming after work. And my girlfriend and I will be there. And
you're doing it right. You're getting family time.
Yeah.
Have you been taking full advantage of summer? I have to ask. It's the last day of July. It's the 31st.
I know. It's crazy. No, I haven't. Like, I haven't really gone anywhere and done much. Like, in terms of traveling.
What's the quintessential Chicago thing to do in the summer? Or what are some of the things? What comes to mind for you?
That I tend to do. Obviously, it's not. Everyone has their own different things. But we tend to hit up, like, street festivals a lot. And I think coming up in a few weeks, is it next weekend maybe? Is Market Days, North Halstead Market Days.
Okay.
I tend to go there with my my brothers and my girlfriend. We didn't go last year, obviously, with, you know, we're still living in this pandemic, of course. Yeah. And I was a little too wary about it at the time. But now I feel ready to go back out there and have a gay old time because it is a...
I was going to ask, is it specific with that Halstead culture, like LGBT?
A little bit. You know, I have two brothers who are gay, and so for years, I mean, decades now, I guess, I've been going to, like, the pride parades. I didn't go this past year. I'm sort of over the parade, like, especially you know, the corporatization of it.
Yeah.
So many corporate floats, like Orbitz and all these other, like, brands that don't really need to be there, but they got the money and they got these balloons and whatever.
I remember when I realized it was, like, I'd say 4 years ago, and some of my friends went and they had State Farm branded, like, rainbow, I don't know, drink koozies or phone cases or something. I was like, I couldn't believe this. Like,
yeah. So, I mean, it's like obviously a place to give some free swag and, you know, some goodies if you're into that. But, like, also, so yeah, Market Days, it's its own thing. And there tend to be, you know, like, some performers that come out, like
nice.
You know, bands that are just hitting these, like, festival circuits, like Expose. I think last year, or Lisa and Cult Jam were supposed to be there. I saw 2 years, maybe before the pandemic, we went and saw Sheila E. perform there, and that was amazing. She killed it. And I'm a huge Prince fan, and obviously she's one of his proteges, and so she came out and killed it. And Deborah Cox is there, who's also, like, a staple for these for the Market Days fest. I've seen her perform there a couple of times.
Mentioned Prince protege. You used to live in Minnesota, right? So this is
I did a residency there once. Yeah,
you did a residency there. I'm like, we talked about Minnesota.
Yeah,
once.
Red Wing. Yeah, for sure.
Talked about Minnesotan royalty.
Yeah, I would love to go and visit, you know, the Paisley Park, you know, in the museum there that they have. And
I don't know. Is there a Prince?
Yeah, it's like his estate. It's called It's Paisley Park. Yeah, since he's died, of course, it's become this monetized thing. You know, for his the estate, I guess. Yeah, you can go in and check out, like, Paisley Park, and you can see the stuff that he had. Obviously, probably records and maybe a glimpse into the studio, maybe a glimpse of the vault. I'm not sure.
I'd like to see that. Yeah.
Yeah.
One thing I think the only thing I know about Prince's house is that he had, like, every single room set up for recording. So if he had ideas, he could, like, kick something out in the kitchen or wherever else he was. Like, he didn't have to go to the studio, which is great because inspiration can strike at any time. Yeah,
and he was such a creator. Like, he was, just an innovator and just always creating, it seems like. And
you mentioned the vault. Supposedly he also had a million things in the vault that he never released, right? So makes sense he was putting out a lot of material.
And that stuff has been slowly coming out in, like, these re-releases of old albums of his that have, you know, these extra mixes or, you know, B-sides that weren't, like, currently around or available at the time. And that's been fun to, as a Prince fan and a collector of his work, you know, to have those as part of the collection.
I just saw something that was giving some information about music and how more and more of our consumption of music is a legacy act. Like, more often than not, we're listening to an artist that's already put out music that's not, like, new music.
Yeah.
and I don't know if it's a reflection of how developed the music industry is and how, kind of genres have been flushed out. Some of the more obvious terrain has been taken over, and it's harder and harder to craft a fan base, or if it's a larger wave of nostalgia that's been happening in our media consumption culture. But it really got me thinking, and especially they were selling all the catalogs. Bob Dylan sold his catalog for hundreds of millions of dollars. I can't remember some of the other ones did. Maybe Bruce Springsteen did.
I think Bruce did too recently.
But they were like cashing in after decades, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, which is kind of hard to believe that these songs that are 50 years old are as popular as ever.
Yeah. I mean,
just to ask in your genre of work, like poetry, do you find that that's the case, that there's, I don't know, some sort of legacy bias or an aversion to people trying new artists? Is there something for people to be found, or?
No, for sure. There's, I'm not sure if it applies the same. I mean, there are poets obviously who've been in the game for a while and have multiple books, and then they'll put out, like a collected works book volume, right? And it's just one giant book that basically has all 4 or 5 of their books together in one volume, and those are pretty cool to have. Like I have the collected works of Lucille Clifton. This came out in 2010, I believe, and she's one of my favorite poets. And yeah, it's just a collection of all of her work in one volume. Some of the stuff were obviously in book form, but some of those like uncollected works or early writings, that weren't sort of published anywhere, and so it's cool to sort of see that. But I think with poetry, there's always, I feel like it seems like there's a lot of newness and new writers and a lot of attention to young and new writers, especially, that are coming in and getting these like great, amazing book deals and, or having agents and stuff like that, which is like a newer thing for the poetry genre, I think, as opposed to like fiction. That's like you always got like a literary agent or somebody to sort of help you along the way. And for poets, I think for a while it was like, I don't have an agent. I'm just sort of hustling on my own, and I do a very bad job of hustling at times.
No, I wouldn't say that.
But there are some poets that definitely have agents and like, have certain things about booking engagements and stuff like that, which I would, need to like learn more about in order to just step my game up as my own, as my own agent. Yeah.
Well, this is an era where artists are able to break through independently, right? Mm-hmm. Chicago example, Chance the Rapper famously had one of I think the first Grammy nominated album that wasn't on one of the major labels, not to mention like sales records. I don't know how people view success in terms of critical acclaim or sales records, right? But it is now possible with the dispersion that comes from internet mechanisms to be on your own, right? You don't have to have that relationship with, I guess in your case, maybe a printing press, a distribution company that would allow your material to spread out just physically because of how much things are able to be seen everywhere now, right?
Yeah.
I'm happy to hear that it's easier for younger people to now have agents and to get out there, be heard.
I think it's great. I think that, poets should go and get their money wherever they can, and they have access to these people who are helping to facilitate that. I think it's great for them and for the poetry business, POBiz.
Is that a thing?
Oh yeah, that's like
POBiz?
That's what some people.
No, drop.
Yeah,
give me some of the nomenclature. I want to hear it. Yeah,
POBiz. PO-BIZ. Poetry business.
I'm trying to study here. Yeah. I want to be able to talk the talk. I talked about prints and having microphones in every room. Do you keep notepads in every room? Is that?
Yeah, definitely. Our little journals here and there. I always carry a journal with me. I got a journal in my bag as we speak. But I'm also, sometimes I'm not the best at like keeping up with journaling or writing on the daily for sure. I'm not writing daily, more weekly sort of thing.
Sure. Sure.
Yeah. But yeah, I definitely have pens and pads all over.
A certain amount of it, I'm sure you have to like take things in, right? You have to consume things, or you have to at least be listening to what's out there. You can't always expect to be outputting. I know it helps to keep it regular. From what I've heard from writers, right? Like it's good to keep the tradition, the habits, but you can't expect yourself to constantly have full output or.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think there's something to be said. I mean, not just for writers, but all artists. I think, those moments of non-creativity, those sort of silent moments that you have as an artist, where you're just sort of marinating on stuff. And I think what's important to me, what I find to be important, is as long as you're sort of engaging with the art in some way. So obviously I'm still reading. I'm always reading most poetry, but other types of work too, of course. And I think that's a big element of the creative process, is sort of, like you said, being open to taking in other ideas or other thoughts that maybe a book or a poem might, spark. It might, reading something might generate something in you and that you want to jot down and sort of emulate in some ways.
Have you found yourself stopping yourself from reading a certain author or work because you find yourself emulating it too much? Like taking the style?
Not really. I think it's kind of good, to try on a certain style, a different style, because it's just you're just sort of expanding your own, ways of creating. And yeah, you're going to don this hat that's going to be maybe in the style of a Lucille Clifton. And that's kind of cool, I think, because it just sort of opens you up to other ways of writing and creating. But I think for me, maybe early on I had that. Like for a while, my favorite poet is a poet named Pablo Neruda. I mean, he's like world renowned. And I was really loving his, I love his love poems. Like those are like some of my favorite of his. He has a book called 20 Love Poems and a Song of Despair, which is one of my favorite books of poems. And maybe, I don't know if I mentioned this, but like the reason I sort of came across it at the time, I was in high school and really, into love poetry, and this idea, the idea of romance is sort of what it was I was really into, and girls, of course. But I was thinking it was a Details magazine, and they had like, I don't know, a list of like 20 most romantic things you can do or for a woman, and one of it included like, reading some Pablo Neruda poems and like reference this book, and I was cool. Oh yeah, I gotta check it out. But of course, I mean, I love it, and I shared it for sure with some crushes back in the day, some poems here and there. But I definitely, that book was so instrumental to my early writing career that I was definitely writing in his style and like trying to talk about hyacinths or whatever, like stuff I hadn't really seen or know about, but I was like, that's such a cool word and it's a beautiful flower or whatever.
I was going to ask, is that a flower?
It is a flower, but it's one of the words that he uses a lot in his work, and so I'd incorporate that into my own work or something. And,
I love it.
So yeah, I think, but for a while then, like I, just started reading other folks and like sort of got out of that little Neruda rut that I was in.
No, it can't be called a rut.
No, it's not a rut, but yeah. The track I was on.
No, that's great. Yeah, that's really great. I mean, how many bands play cover songs for years? My first band that I played with, we were like playing Brain Stew by Green Day and Island in the Sun by Weezer.
Oh, nice.
Probably the easiest songs by some of the easier acts to emulate at that time.
I'm assuming you're not going, today is the last day of Lollapalooza, which Green Day is headlining. I don't know.
Are they really?
Yeah.
I'm not, but funnily enough, I'm going tomorrow to break down, I believe, the sets of Lollapalooza.
What?
I'm trying into the theatrical stage employee union, and I got put on this thing, like an availability list for work, and I have not had any jobs or work yet whatsoever. This is a few months running, basically, a couple months.
Right.
And I finally got a job request, or like, they send out some information, like who's interested in doing this, and it's, I believe, tearing down the sets, because it's Monday morning. I need to show up with a hard hat, a high visibility vest, a crescent wrench, and a hammer.
Wow.
To Grant Park.
Wow.
So I didn't get to attend Lollapalooza this year, but I will be there carefully deconstructing all the stage work.
Wow, that's cool, man. I didn't know that.
Yeah, it'll be interesting.
Yeah.
I'm interested to see a different, obviously, scale of production work that can occur. Hopefully next time you're here, we'll be on like a 14-foot riser.
Yeah. Yeah, maybe you can make a series of videos of breaking it down or building it up and then breaking it down at some point.
You got to see every angle of it. Yeah, but speaking of building things up, yeah, you were talking about being able to take inspiration from others. I like that a lot too. One thing I actually was thinking about doing with this podcast at one point is doing this podcast in the style of other podcasts. And I didn't always have this like notion, but especially it's called the Neverending Becoming. If I over time I can just make the podcast become other podcasts. Like I can just do kind of like a cover episode where I still.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, hit me. Like you have the same ideas, right? You can still have the same personality, but just do it in the skin of like a podcast format,
right? Visually,
or I don't know, with some of the transitions or graphics that they use.
Yeah, some of the music elements, like you said. Yeah. Like the Neverending Becoming No Dunks Inc., for example, which is one of my favorite podcasts, then yeah, I could totally see you like using that sort of, that form, Neverending Becoming blah, 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 or whatever podcast.
I mean, it's like, honestly, I think one of the strongest ways you can actually pay tribute to a podcast that you love, right, is like trying to notice what makes that podcast what it is, because so many of them actually have the same attributes, right? Especially because largely they are still audio only, which can remove a lot of creative choices. But even then, like a lot of times they're using the same microphones. Like there aren't that many choices you can make with soundproofing. Like you kind of need a deadened audio space. And it really gets broken down to like the personality of the host or the segments that they choose to do. If I did a No Dunks version, would you come on? Would you,
absolutely.
Do you think you could do it?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I'd listen to them, pretty regularly. And, I had the good fortune of playing basketball with them once upon a time, and that was really cool. And yeah, they're a very nice group of Canadians and Australian. But yeah, they're very cool. And I like the sort of segments, the little segments that they have, like one of the ones that they do is up or down. Like it's just they'll put out a topic and are you up or are you down on the topic? And it was just they used to have like foam thumbs. I think when they were they used to have the TV show, The Starters on NBA TV, and they've since done away with the foam thumbs.
See, I'm gonna need you because you can consult what's old, what's new. We can throw some old stuff in. We can still use some of the new stuff.
Yeah, but the up or down report is still there, which is pretty cool. And of course, anytime there's like a wedgie at a certain game, they'll play back a clip of it and just say here was a wedgie, and then they'll count down. This is wedgie number whatever of the season.
Is this a literal wedgie, like underpants butt wedgie?
No, it's a basketball wedgie.
What is that?
It is a wedgie is this is what according to the No Dunks crew, right?
There are different. Me.
There's wedgie, a ledgie, and a pigeon. So a wedgie is when a ball gets stuck in between the rim, right, and in the side of the rim and the backboard, right, just stuck. And I've definitely had a wedgie. I think last week I might have shot one at Saturday Morning Hoops, and so that's a wedgie. The ledgie is if maybe a shot, mostly free throws. I think these tend to happen. The ball sort of bounces and just stays on the ledge of the rim between the backboard and doesn't go in.
That's tough.
It was very rare.
That's crazy.
But that's what they call a ledgie. And the pigeon is when the ball, and this is usually for NBA stuff. I mean, like I'm thinking like Grosse Park. We don't have the structure for it. But the pigeon is when the ball goes on top of the backboard, and you know how the NBA
it's like the rectangular foam up there, right?
Yeah, they got the rectangular foam, but they also have like those bars and wires that are sort of keeping it in place, so the ball just sort of gets stuck in that little area, and that's called a pigeon.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome. We need to bring this terminology to our park.
Hey, I shot wedgie every time there's a wedgie to happen. I don't think anyone gets it, except for maybe Nate. I think he knows that podcast a little bit, but yeah. But anytime there was actually a wedgie at the Sky game on Friday night, and I shouted it, and I don't know if anyone cared or heard, beyond my girlfriend.
Dude, you're doing work out there. You're bringing it to the masses.
Yeah, I mean, I'm trying to it's also just fun to say wedgie. I mean, it's just kind of a funny word. And yeah, you're thinking, of course, the wedgie, of course, like of growing up and just getting, your underwear wedged into you by somebody.
Right. My old trauma was coming back in there. I was like, it must be this.
Yeah.
No, we can incorporate. We can either use clips from our actual basketball games, which would be great, or we can just set up like a green screen hoop behind us and do fake wedgies and ledgies. I think the ledgy can only happen if we do a green screen, unless we took like 1,000,000 shots.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
It'd take forever.
Yeah, it'd be hard.
Make that work.
Had to have somebody with like nice touch, like a nice spin under touch somehow. I feel like that's a part of it.
How do they dress on that show? I'm trying to think.
Oh, very casual.
Like. There's no, okay.
A lot of time, oftentimes they're wearing like merchandise, their own merchandise shirts, you know, like
That's
they have
great.
several no dunk shirts. And
Do you have one?
I do. I even have a no dunks jersey.
So do you have two?
Yeah.
We could each wear one.
Oh, of course.
If I'm being too presumptuous,
No,
like
no,
wear your
yeah.
clothing.
Yeah, of course.
But that's even better. If they're wearing merch, you could directly rip off what they're wearing by wearing the exact same thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, perfect. All right. We got a future here. I think I know one of the first
Never-ending
episodes.
becoming no dunks, yeah.
I'll try to watch it myself too. Do you feel like so there's two people or no?
There are 4 actually. When there's like 4 panelists, and then usually one guy, JD, is a producer behind the scenes. Sometimes he'll pop up on camera and help guide them, but usually he's the sound dude, making sure everything is all level. Because they also do like live streams, like recordings and stuff. So, which they then, it's live streamed on YouTube, then they turn it into a podcast via wherever you get your podcast from. So
Good, they're YouTube first. That bodes well
for sure.
for this household.
Just like Neverending becoming.
Is there one of the personalities you'd want to do, like that you would be that voice, or
maybe Tass? I feel like he's.
Okay, when I watch, I'm gonna pay attention.
Yeah, he's very just chill. Yeah, and I feel like I'm pretty chill.
Okay, nice. I'll scope out the other characters to see what would be possible for me. I want to make sure we get to some of your poetry before we get too deep in the episode here.
Yeah.
I don't want to run out of time on that.
Yeah.
If you wouldn't mind, I'd love to hear some of your work.
Yeah. I don't have it on me, but I do have a poem called Ode to the Wedgie, which maybe I'll bring back next time. Or if we end up doing this sort of no dunks thing, I could read it there. But actually,
yes, that is exactly when we should do it. That'd be great.
But what's funny is that they actually read that poem on their podcast once, which was filmed in Chicago right before the pandemic when the All-Star game was here. And
oh, that's great.
I flew with them that morning, and I told them, big fan. I never write in though, like, because they always like have questions like from the from their fans, because they're just need content, and so I never wrote in. And then I was like, I just gave them this poem. I was like, big fan. I'm gonna go to your show tonight. I would love to just give you this poem. It's about the wedgie, which you guys popularized and in my heart. And they're like, oh, cool. You mind if we read it later tonight? I was like, yeah, of course. It'd be my honor. And Tass, the guy I was mentioning, who I would probably be, read it to the crowd. And they put some like soft music behind it. It was...
Okay, I can't believe you've already been on this podcast, basically. Your work has been emulated through this podcast. So this is all the more fitting.
So next time I can share that.
It's so like, I don't know if it's postmodern, 21st century, however you want to look at it, is you playing the character of the podcast host who actually read your poem. We could do the same emulation, soft music on the background.
Yeah.
I love it though.
Yeah. But I don't have that poem with me, unfortunately.
Oh, we got to tease for next time.
Yeah.
Put a little
tune
teaser
in
for
next time. I brought a couple poems, but I'm just stuff I've been working on lately. I brought, my book just to honor it. I'm going to just show it here. Throwing the crown. Get it wherever books are sold.
Please.
It's been 4 years since it's come, like September be 4 years that it's been out, which is pretty exciting.
Congrats. Yeah.
Thanks. But anyways, I just brought it just for visual purposes and plugging purposes.
No, of
course.
I'll put it in the description.
Yeah.
Interested parties.
But so I'll read a couple of newer poems, I guess. This one I was actually working on earlier this morning, and I titled it, but I'm not sure about the title. So it's called The Cats Cast Aside Their Names. Should we still call our cats Russian blues since Russia's invaded Ukraine for over 100 days and counting? What if we called them Ukrainian blues as an act of solidarity, like Ukrainian flags hanging out from American windows in businesses and churches? Do cats even need a country of origin as labels? What if we just called them really grays or kinda blues? Our cats, a pair of American blurs of fur who renounce Mother Russia as a namesake for their kind. They meow, free Brittany Griner, whom we saw live and in person, playing in the WNBA Finals, and we cheered when her team lost to the Chicago Sky, our hometown team. It was the last time BG played on a WNBA court before she flew to Russia to play for a team which pays her more than American soil courts, despite the rise in ratings and attendance and sponsorships. They meow, bring BG home. They meow, fuck Putin, after puking up a clump of wet gray hairs and bits of dry food on hardwood floors, then dig their claws into scratch pads, eager for more treats and touches. One rubs my legs as I write this, while a commercial plane soars overhead. Meanwhile, in Ukraine, a warplane launches more bombs and missiles down on civilians who will be labeled collateral damage by state-sponsored messaging. The cat plops on the floor and yowls with its belly up, ready for a rubdown.
Excellent. Thank you for bringing something so new, too.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Yeah, feels good to share.
Happy we get to break some of your new work. I've of course heard about the Russian war being perpetrated in Ukraine now and the Brittany Griner case and all that, but it also connected some things and finished some information I didn't quite fully know about. Like I didn't realize all that. Did you really see her final game at the WNBA? Wow.
At least in the WNBA, yeah. We went to that. We were fortunate enough to go to Sky Game last year, the finals game. We bought tickets sort of last minute too, which is kind of crazy that we were able to get tickets.
Yeah.
And then I think, we looked again shortly after and the tickets, had risen in prices and stuff and because of demand. But yeah, it was awesome to see her there and in person. And, it was a great game. Obviously the Sky won and, had a great championship celebration and stuff. But yeah, it just got me thinking. Yeah, because we do have a pair of cats that are called technically Russian blues. That's what they're called.
Really?
Yeah. Really? Just great cats. They're just
Russian blues. And then I didn't realize the pay issue. That's one of the reasons she was playing over there is the pay was higher than her contract here. That's unbelievable.
Yeah, I mean, unfortunately, that's the sad reality of professional women basketball players here in the States is that they tend to make more money overseas playing internationally because the league needs to step its game up and do right by these women and pay them what they're owed and what they're due, so that cases like this could have been avoided if things were different.
I'm just unaware too about how media works for WNBA. I mean, sports in general. I've fallen off of how sports are broadcast and then obviously consumed by people. Are you able to see different franchises' games? Is there a central source that the distribution or that the broadcasts occur through?
Yeah, so there are some. We have Hulu Live or whatever, and so ESPN tends to show some NBA games, WNBA games. There might be one on right now, actually, as we speak. ABC sometimes will broadcast some national games. And then CBS Sports Network or whatever tends to broadcast some national games. But they also have a league pass, the WNBA does, which I haven't invested in myself. I'm sorry. But you can stream, different franchises and I'm not sure how to work out because I know it's with the NBA league pass, if for Chicago Bulls games, right? If they're broadcast on the network or whatever, then you might not be able to stream it via league pass somehow.
Yeah, I'm just actively confused by some of that stuff because it used to be super obvious. WGN, right? There'd be the channel, the sole provider for that team. I didn't know if the same was true for some of the WNBA franchises, or if they had made a stronger push to do national coverage. I know, for instance, Notre Dame football, even though they're this Indiana private school, everyone in the country is able to see those games every single week, just because of how the media relationships are worked out. I also wasn't sure if social media in any way was related to how people were able to connect with or consume content from the league, or if they were trying anything, I guess, new. You know, you mentioned like the Hulu connection. Like that stuff is great because you like find people who already have access, as opposed to doing like a whole separate league pass thing. Like people don't want to have a million signing accounts, and there's just a general apathy that seems to come along with that.
There are also games, I haven't watched it myself, but I know there are games that are streamed on Facebook and Twitter.
There are.
Yeah,
cool.
So that's what they, because I see them like listed. I go to their website and see like, well, if there are any games on, but I don't have a Twitter account, and I don't really want to watch a game on Facebook, to be honest, but I'd rather stream it via, whatever channel or something. But it's cool that they're using these other avenues to try to get their product out there, right? And trying to use social media as a way to garner more interest into the league.
Yeah. No, I mean, you should. This is something I'm trying to do with the podcast, is make it as easy as possible for people to consume. I think when the time you came on last year, I had it on audio only for podcasts and Spotify, or did I not? Do you recall that? If you could just listen to it, or if it was YouTube only. But I've only been doing that for a year, and I've done the podcast for like 2.5 years.
Right.
But I wasn't doing the audio only distribution through Spotify, Amazon Music, or all the different places you can find podcasts now.
Yeah.
But it's all opening up, which I think will be great for things like the WNBA, because usually you build fandom when you're younger. Maybe you're younger, you're more adept at using those technologies, and probably less likely to sign up for some specialized pass or to have some specialized account for something.
Yeah.
Do you have any others we could hear?
Yeah, sure. Well, I was talking about Lucille Clifton. So I have this one poem that I wrote, last year, and recently got picked up by a journal. It should be coming out soon. Alien Journal, which is Columbia College Chicago's like literary journal, one of their literary journals. So I sent them some poems, and they accepted this one. It's called Heart's Blessing, after Lucille Clifton. May the stent in your heart keep the blood moving steady and serenely. May you cry without chest pains, shed water for your sisters lost among the overwhelming losses of last year. May your heart ache with the pang of love's carnage, and not from eating too much garnet, too many fried papas and slices of cheese. May the med you buy be cheap and strong against the tides of time, working against the body's shore. May your heart be reborn daily, failing only to hold in all the love gushing out.
Nice.
Yeah.
Every time I'm not sure if I don't know like what the conventions are for like poetry, if I should like directly respond or like ask you questions instantly. Like
there's a funny thing that happens. And I remember when I first went to Columbia, one of my first classes was intro to beginning workshop or whatever, and this poet Ariella Greenberg was my instructor, and she talked about, usually at readings, if you tend to go to like any readings, you'll hear people just like, just do like that sort of thing.
You got to give some space so someone can let it sink in, have their own emotional reaction.
She called that like the hamster's orgasm or something, or the gerbil's orgasm. I don't know. I just thought it was funny. So yeah, sometimes you'll hear that. I mean, or it depends on the crowd too. Sometimes people will snap, or applaud. Some poets tend to like the immediate reception. Other people like to just be like, I'm gonna read all these poems, and then you can clap at the end. You don't have to clap after every one,
right?
Because it sort of ruined the flow of maybe whatever a writer had in store for their reading.
It just changes the moment. Obviously, unless I'm like trying to directly, create the same emotional reaction that your poem maybe created in the listener, unless I'm trying to emulate that and stay on that wavelength, like it gets you out of the mindset that you take us to. When you're reading the work. Yeah,
I think though, I think you should react as how you want to react. I think most people invite that sort of like reception. They want to know, at least maybe it's just me, want to know that, something is working or hitting. Like, cool. There are definitely poets or people in poetry audiences who will react to certain lines and, will do the hamster, orgasm at certain moments of the poem, not to mention like at the end of a poem or something like that. But like during the reading, they'll snap at a certain line or an image or something that like really hits,
Yeah.
I'm curious.
Cool. Yeah, because I didn't know how sacred it was to like immediately deconstruct it or even to mess up your flow, like making any noise in the middle of your reading of it. So I appreciate you educating me.
Yeah, I know. I'm a professional, man.
We got the Pobo.
Yeah.
Down. We got the
the Po-Biz.
The Po-Biz. See, I needed I needed the correcting.
Yeah.
I needed the help there. Yeah. No, I love it though. And it's, again, poetry ends up being so a part of all of our media, all the things we consume, whether it's obviously the lines that are chosen in a movie, song lyrics being the most obvious, but you end up seeing it through so many things. It's interesting to actually talk about the foundational work that a lot of people pull from and take ideas from and try to emulate, and remix in a new way to create other forms of media.
Yeah.
For this podcast, I've recently been, for the first time, like doing more clips. Like I just YouTube Shorts, which is Reels, which is TikTok, basically. Yeah. I asked you about TikTok last year.
Which I still don't know much about it, but
no, we don't have to go there. I was just gonna say I finally was trying to open up, and this is kind of how we were talking about the WNBA. I was trying to open myself up to other ways of like distributing ideas from this format or sharing smaller bits without it being just in its long, like original 50-minute form. And I enjoyed the process of like picking out a moment from the podcast, 30 seconds max, right?
Right.
And I added the captions along with it, the subtitles, and it was great. It was interesting to obviously make a decision like what's the shareable moment out of this, 10, 20, 50-minute thing, right?
Yeah.
And it now has me thinking about like poetry in this way. We talked about last year, I think I was talking about how with poetry, I was wondering how the closed captioning on TikTok was going to maybe change the way people thought, because sometimes it's easier to consume if you can actually read along with hearing, right?
Yeah.
And how maybe it would just maybe tie poetry more easily in with the visual medium of like online video. But I was curious, I guess, if you've noticed anything in the last year. It's been about a year since you've been on.
Mm-hmm.
If you found yourself having any desire to do digital readings, or have you ever done like a digital reading, like a short or that type of style? Because I know you do in-person readings.
Right. I do that. And I mean, I have, and there are, readings that sort of get filmed and put on YouTube or whatever. So you can find some videos of me reading some poems at, various settings. But I don't, put that content out myself. Like I don't have a YouTube channel, for example, or a website, for example. And as because I feel like that would be a place to sort of put those type of moments, like myself reading a certain poem. But yeah, I just tend to rely on other people's doing the work for me like this. Sure. Thanks, Shane.
Happy to. Throwing the Crown in theaters now.
Yeah.
In bookstores now.
Theaters.
Where is it? Copper Canyon Press? What's the name of that?
Yeah. I mean, it's distributed at Copper Canyon Press, American Poetry Review. Yeah.
That's a theater to me. That's what.
Yeah.
Well, I didn't know. I mean, it's possible that you actually would want people to read it in their own voice. I would assume that makes a pretty big difference, whether someone's hearing you, obviously emphasizing the things that maybe make you feel a certain way in your work, versus people reading with their own interior monologue, right?
Yeah.
It's got to change the experience somewhat. And if you were protective of one method of consumption versus the other.
Yeah. I think in general, I think it's cool when reading and engaging with poems. Well, one, to read the poem out loud yourself. Like if you're reading some poems, I tend to read poems out loud to myself just to hear how it sounds, and then sort of will go back and revisit it, just read it silently. And but if it's in like a group setting, for example, like a workshop, I think it's one thing is to sort of get things going is to have a poem be read by two different voices, so that way you can hear the different ways people read it. Even if like the poem, if I'm there if I'm having my poem being workshopped, you know, then maybe I have you read it first, so then then I get to hear what it sounds like to somebody else, and then I'll read in, and you know, the class or whatever will get to see what it's supposed to sound like or whatever, you know. But it's also cool to, like, I think it's a good teaching moment to hear how other people are reading it and where, you know, where people are pausing or where people are stumbling over certain things, which is just a good element to sort of go back to and revise and, you know, try to get it down to, you know, whatever way the poet wants it in their head.
What's it like hearing someone else read your poem right before you do? Do you feel like you want to jump in and...
No, I think it's
pause,
cool.
a little bit, pause.
Yeah. Yeah. I think, but then it's the thing, right? It's those, when you go and read it, like, or the poet, you know, then you sort of, maybe you will do a deliberate pause after a certain break, or like maybe, you know, give more emphasis to the line breaks and pausing at the end of each line as opposed to just sort of reading like right through it, you know, bleeding into the next line.
In this text message era that we're in, I find myself actually using punctuation grammatically wrong to sort of force a certain reading from someone, like to add extra commas, to force spaces or ellipses, to kind of like create breathing room between sentiments. Yeah.
There are, you know, definitely poems like that do that either have maybe like periods, you know, after certain, for, you know, like 2 or 3 words, right, period, or they'll have like slash marks or something, and just as a way to sort of signify, maybe give a breath right here or something like that, or a pause. I don't really have it in my stuff. Oh yeah, I do have a little like space between words, which is called the caesura in a line, and that's like also a place to sort of allow a breath and stuff. So,
that's interesting method. So just literal space. You don't have to throw any punctuation in there. Just like be literally spacing these words out.
Yeah. So like for example, the 2 poems that I read, right? One doesn't have many punctuation mark. Doesn't really have any punctuation mark. I'll show it. You probably can't see it, but
no, I think they can. I can even zoom in too if you want to.
But the other one, you know, the first poem was full of punctuations and question marks and stuff like that. So I tend to play around. Depends on the poem. Depends on the mood I'm feeling. With punctuation, with spacing. Not every poem is going to be written in the same sort of style, of course, or follow the same rules that the previous poem I was working on was doing. And I think that's one of the beauties of writing and creating in general, right? You just want to surprise yourself and try to make things new. As like there's an old cliche in poetry, like make it new. I think it's an Ezra Pound or maybe T.S. Eliot like line where you're just trying to make something new.
I have one question on that. It's a little ridiculous, but now, I mean, with e-readers, PDFs, do you feel like there'd be any value in doing different font colors? Or playing with graphics, maybe?
Yeah.
I mean, you could, of course, use photos or a GIF, but like, because I would assume a lot of poetry that has been created, they're forced into a certain look due to typewriters, or then after that, even the way something is printed using one type of ink, right? Mm-hmm. Do you feel like there would be any value in that for yourself, or have you seen people do that?
I am not. I don't see it for myself, like not necessarily like with the fonts, but you know, there has been a movement, or not a movement, but it's like there's been a lot of visual poetry being created lately, graphic poetry, where it incorporates, of course, like text, traditional text, but also like there might be, maybe poem will be in the shape of a certain thing. You know, those are like you know, concrete. Something like concrete poetry, but not quite concrete poetry, right? And it's just sort of playing with the medium, playing with the form, creating its own sort of form with this visual element. And I think it's really cool to come across work like that. It sort of engages the different sense of your brain, right? Or different side of your brain, like we were talking about earlier. I don't know which side, but
I don't either.
But it's like, you know, I think it's really cool. I'm not somebody who is doing that right now. Maybe at some point I will, but I really respect and admire people who do have that in that element in their work. I find it's a great for the genre of poetry and as well as visual artists, I guess.
Yeah, it's a small detail, but yeah, it is something you made me think about, and you always make me think about things. Jacob, thank you very much for coming on the show again.
Thanks for having me, James. It's my pleasure.
Happy before even finishing our second go-around, we already have a concept show created for the third time. So
yeah, let me know.
Looking forward to putting on someone else's skin and trying it out and emulating some of our other favorite creators. But until then, thanks again. We'll see y'all soon.
Peace.